It was supposed to be just another quiet shift. The night crew at St. Elora's Medical Center moved like shadows, silent, steady, invisible. Floors were mopped, charts were filed, and the hum of fluorescent lights buzzed like an old tune nobody really noticed. Down in the trauma wing, the janitor moved alone, a man in dark scrubs, head down, hands calloused from years of work. Most knew him only as Mr. Griggs. Didn't speak much, didn't laugh much, just worked, and worked well. He never corrected them when they called him cleaning staff, never said a word when orderlies pushed past him like air. He kept his silence like a badge, but his eyes had seen things. At 2:17 a.m., the silence cracked. A young man was wheeled in, chest soaked in blood, face pale, limbs twitching. A car crash, liver rupture, massive internal bleeding. The ER buzzed to life. Nurses scrambled, alarms rang, and the lead trauma surgeon, Dr. Kellner, stormed in like a thundercloud. "Move!" he barked, waving staff aside. "We're losing him." Mr. Griggs stood by the edge of the room, mop still in hand. He didn't flinch. He just watched. Carefully. In the chaos, one of the surgical nurses fumbled. A tray crashed. Scalpels hit the floor. Panic spiked. "Damn it! We need hands in here!" Dr. Kellner shouted. "Where's Mitchell? Where's second assist?" No answer. Then came a woman's voice, trembling, desperate, from just outside the doors. "Please, someone, help him. Please, my husband, he's all I have." It was the patient's wife. Her face was streaked with tears, her voice already hoarse from screaming. She turned and saw Mr. Griggs still standing by the surgical prep area, not moving, just watching, like he was weighing something. "What are you doing?" she cried. "Help them! Please help him!" Before anyone could stop her, she grabbed his arm. "You work here. Do something." That's when it happened. Mr. Griggs stepped forward, set the mop down, and without a word, began scrubbing his hands at the sink. Silence rippled through the trauma team. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Dr. Kellner snapped. "You're a janitor, not a surgeon. Get the hell out of here." The wife froze. Her eyes darted between them. And then, in a whisper that cut through everything, she said, "That's not a janitor, that's my surgeon." Everyone turned. Time stopped. There was a stunned silence, the kind that doesn't come from shock alone, but from disbelief crashing into memory. The wife, Olivia, stood firm, hand still outstretched toward the man she called her surgeon. Dr. Kellner scoffed, waving a gloved hand toward her like she'd spoken blasphemy. "Lady, he's maintenance. He probably doesn't even know what a scalpel is." But Mr. Griggs didn't flinch. He rinsed, he scrubbed precisely, deliberately, fingers, thumbs, wrists, up to the elbows. Not a motion wasted. "I don't understand," whispered one of the young nurses. Why would she say that? Because it was true. 5 years earlier, in a small clinic on the outskirts of Atlanta, Dr. Elijah Griggs had been a trauma surgeon, graduated top of his class, served in the Army, multiple deployments, battlefield commendations, 1 Bronze Star. He'd rebuilt hands, livers, and lives. But none of that mattered after the lawsuit. A high-profile patient, a hospital cover-up. Dr. Griggs had taken the fall for a mistake that wasn't his. And once his license was under review, pending but never officially revoked, no one would hire him again. Not as a doctor, not as a man. So he stopped trying, put the white coat in a box, and picked up a mop to feed his family. Only one person had ever asked why. Olivia. She was 6 months pregnant when she'd met Dr. Griggs, then still wearing his coat, in the ER of a crumbling community clinic. Her blood pressure was spiking. The baby was at risk. Other doctors told her to wait. He didn't. He saved them both. They kept in touch, exchanged letters, and when her husband got transferred to St. Elora's for his job, she'd promised to stop by and thank the man who had saved her family. But fate didn't wait. Now her husband was lying open on an operating table, dying, and the only man who had once saved her was being ordered out of the room. "I said get out!" Kellner barked again. "I will not have the janitor contaminating this OR." Mr. Griggs turned. "I've seen more blood than you ever will," he said, calm and low. "And I've saved more lives than you've touched. Get out!" A security guard stepped forward, but then Olivia stepped between them. "I swear to God, if you touch him and my husband dies, I'll make sure this entire hospital burns under malpractice suits," she hissed. "This man saved me. He knows what he's doing." The other nurses hesitated. One of them glanced toward the wall, at the framed commendation that had always seemed out of place. Elijah J. Griggs, M.D., U.S. Army Trauma Services, Fallujah, 2009. No one ever asked how that got there. But now the pieces were falling into place. Still, the weight of silence hung in the room like a noose. No one moved. No one helped. They just watched. The blood pressure monitor let out a loud, angry beep. "We're crashing," someone called out. "BP's dropping fast. He's going into shock." Dr. Kellner fumbled with his gloves. "We don't have time. Someone page Mitchell again." Mr. Griggs took a step forward. "I can clamp the bleed, but I need someone on suction and someone to keep the airway clear." Kellner turned. "Touch him, and you'll never work in this town again?" Griggs looked at the wife, then the patient, and then the gloves. He slipped them on. "Then I guess I won't be working. I'll be saving a life." And with that, the man they called the janitor walked toward the table, not with hesitation, but with purpose. He didn't ask for permission. Mr. Griggs stepped into the operating field like a man walking back into his rightful place. Not with arrogance. No, with quiet precision. The kind you only earn after years of seeing life and death trade places and knowing how to pull one back. The room froze. Every nurse, every intern, every breath. Only the machines kept talking, monitors beeping erratically as the patient's vitals nosedived. Dr. Kellner snapped, "He touches that patient, and this is over. I'll sue. I'll have his—" "Step aside," said Griggs, softly but firmly. The words weren't loud, but they carried weight. The kind of weight you don't question. Kellner hesitated, and then Griggs picked up the clamp. The patient's liver was hemorrhaging, fast, deep, uncontrollable. A single mistake would mean death in under 2 minutes. Griggs didn't flinch. "Clamp. Suction. Retractor," he said calmly. One of the nurses, Amber, moved first. Her hands shook, but she obeyed. Another followed. Then another. Within seconds, the operating team realigned around Griggs. They weren't obeying out of protocol. They were following instinct, his instinct. And suddenly, the bleeding slowed, then stopped. "BP stabilizing," one of the interns whispered. Heartbeats returning to baseline. Kellner stood in the corner, jaw tight, arms crossed. Powerless. For the next 20 minutes, Griggs operated like a man possessed by memory. Every cut, every stitch, every instruction, delivered like muscle memory carved into time. There was no fear, no hesitation, only focus. At one point, someone asked, "How do you know this?" He didn't answer, because he didn't need to. Across the room, Olivia clutched her chest and wept. She didn't know how this was happening, only that it was. The janitor was saving her husband's life. And suddenly, whispers began. "Didn't he serve in the military? I thought I saw his name in a journal once. That's not just some cleaning guy." Someone slipped out into the hallway, pulled out their phone. Within minutes, the hospital staff group chat lit up. Look at this. He was a trauma surgeon. A real one. Holy crap. He worked in combat zones. Fallujah. He's published. Highly decorated. Why the hell was he pushing a mop? The whisper became a wave. By the time the final suture was tied and the vitals monitor flatlined into a healthy rhythm, no one dared say a word. Griggs exhaled slowly, removed his gloves, and stepped back. The patient lived. Alive because of the man everyone ignored, because of the janitor. The surgical lights dimmed slightly. The room fell quiet again, this time not from panic, but from reverence. A junior nurse spoke up. "Sir, where did you learn that technique?" Griggs looked at her gently. "Baghdad, 2008. No light, no power. Just a heartbeat and a promise." Then he turned to Olivia. "I told you I'd always show up when it mattered." Her knees gave way. A nearby orderly caught her before she fell. She didn't cry. She sobbed. Behind them, Dr. Kellner started to protest. "This doesn't change protocol. He's not authorized. This is a violation of every hospital code." But no one was listening, not anymore, because just then the hospital administrator arrived. Tall, white coat, silver hair, serious face. He stopped at the door, looked at the scene, and then at Elijah Griggs. "Elijah?" he said, almost not believing. Griggs turned. They locked eyes, and the weight of years filled the space between them. "You're not supposed to be here," the administrator finally said. Griggs tilted his head. "I was never supposed to leave," he replied. The silence was louder than any machine. The operating room felt heavier now, as if every person inside was finally seeing the man in front of them, really seeing him for the first time. Elijah Griggs stood at the center, gloves off, hands steady, his breath even. He looked neither proud nor bitter. Just complete. Like he'd returned to a part of himself long buried under layers of dust, silence, and humiliation. The administrator stepped closer, shaking his head slowly. "I read about you," he said, voice low. "They said you walked away." Griggs met his eyes. "I didn't walk. I was pushed." Another silence. Then the administrator turned to the rest of the staff and said, "Get me his file, now." A nurse ran to the station. In the meantime, word had spread. Phones buzzed, staff whispered in corners, screens glowed with searches. Dr. Elijah J. Griggs, decorated Army trauma surgeon, wrongfully accused in malpractice cover-up, license never revoked, no charges filed. Lived under the radar after hospital scandal. The truth spilled like light cracking through boarded windows. And then came the sound of footsteps, hurried, then slowing. The chief of surgery arrived, flanked by legal counsel and a compliance officer. They'd heard. Too late. "What the hell is going on in my hospital?" she snapped. Dr. Kellner pointed a shaking finger. "That janitor just performed unauthorized surgery." "No," Olivia said, stepping forward, her voice fierce. "That surgeon just saved my husband's life when the man you authorized nearly let him die." The room turned. Kellner stammered. "He's not licensed. He's not—" "He's more than licensed," Olivia cut in. "He's a damn war hero. He's the only reason I have a family right now." The administrator held up the retrieved file, thick with documents, sealed letters, and media reports. He read aloud, "Dr. Elijah James Griggs, M.D. FACS, honorable discharge. Army Commendation for Surgical Bravery Under Fire, published in 5 international journals. License, active but voluntarily inactive since 2020. There it was. Official. Undeniable. The truth hit like thunder. "You let a man like this mop our floors?" the chief muttered under her breath, almost to herself. The administrator turned toward Dr. Kellner. You stood in his way? Kellner stiffened. He impersonated a surgeon. No, a nurse interrupted. He was the surgeon, the only one who kept it together. We would have lost that man without him. Another nurse nodded. He gave me direction when you froze. The legal counsel glanced up. There are no legal violations here. His license is inactive, not suspended, and he was acting under medical emergency protocol. He's protected. The room began to shift. Power was moving. And then Olivia, tears still lining her face, walked straight up to Kellner and said, You treated him like garbage. You called him a janitor like that was all he was. But he's the reason my son will still have a father. Kellner opened his mouth. No words came. The administrator stepped in. We'll be reviewing your conduct, doctor, and your future here. Kellner went pale. His hands dropped to his sides. Griggs didn't smirk, didn't gloat. He simply placed his badge, the janitor's badge, on the tray. I won't be needing that anymore. A quiet wave of awe rippled through the room. Then, one of the younger nurses, barely out of school, spoke with a tremble in her voice. Why did you do it? Why'd you stay in the shadows all these years? Griggs looked at her, thought, then answered, Because sometimes dignity means choosing silence over shouting, but tonight wasn't one of those nights. Just then, the monitors beeped steadily. The patient stirred, still unconscious but stable. Olivia rushed to her husband's side, her heart full of something too big for words. Gratitude, yes, but something more. Respect. She turned one last time to Griggs and just whispered, Thank you. He nodded once and walked away. The morning sun crept through the windows of St. Elora's like it hadn't seen what the night had held, but everything had changed. Dr. Elijah Griggs, formerly the janitor, didn't wait around for applause. He changed back into street clothes, left his badge at the front desk, and exited through the side entrance. Quiet, as always. But his absence screamed louder than any presence ever had. By noon, a photo of him in scrubs, taken during the operation, was trending on social media. Unknown hero at St. Elora's saves patient mid-surgery. Decorated army surgeon returns in moment of crisis. Janitor no more. Dr. Elijah Griggs saves life. Silences critics. Hashtags followed. That's my surgeon. Yesterday justice served. Nessie Josie. Dr. Griggs deserves better. Inside the hospital, the fallout came swiftly. Dr. Kellner was placed on administrative leave. His prior patient complaints, long buried, were finally re-examined. The hospital issued a formal apology, publicly. They didn't just name Elijah, they honored him. A framed tribute now hung in the main hallway, to the ones we overlook and the ones who save us anyway. It bore his name, and this time, his real title. Elijah didn't attend the unveiling. Instead, he stood across the street in a plain coat, watching from the sidewalk with a quiet smile. He didn't need revenge. He never had. He had something stronger, dignity. He didn't sue, didn't speak on camera. But he did accept one thing, a reinstatement letter. From the state medical board, hand-delivered. His license was officially reactivated. He could return if he wanted. But Elijah didn't rush back into the operating room. He spent his next few weeks volunteering, this time in the free clinic where he first met Olivia. No fanfare, no spotlight, just healing, like always. And as for Olivia's husband, he survived, recovered, walked again. They sent Elijah a card with one line, handwritten by their 6-year-old son. Thank you for giving me my daddy back. And if you ask around today, around that hospital, that neighborhood, that city, they won't talk about a janitor who broke the rules. They'll tell you the story of the man who kept a nation's promise. No one left behind. If you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or told to stay silent, remember this: the world may not see your worth at first, but truth always finds its way back. And when it does, it doesn't whisper, it roars,